Hi everyone, in this video we will see that how we can do fill down or fill up in Excel using dynamic array formulas. So let's say this particular cell is empty. So fill down means that it has to look up for a value from a cell that has been previously filled. So let's say here this cell is filled with Sachin and this particular cell is empty. So this cell will be populated with Sachin here, right? So we will have Sachin here, again Sachin here. Now this cell is filled, so we don't have to do anything here, right? Now this particular cell is empty, so this will be populated now with Virat, right? Then again this cell with Virat, this cell with Virat, and this cell with Dhoni. Now fill up is just the opposite of fill down, and what it will do is it will look for value in the cells below it and populate a value from a cell that has been filled, right? So let's say this particular cell is empty, so it will populate value from this cell, that is Virat, and let's say this particular cell is also empty, so again it will populate Virat. Now if this cell is empty, so it will populate value from here, that is Dhoni. Again here we will have Dhoni, here again we will have Dhoni, and again here we will have nothing, right? Because this one is empty and we don't have anything below it. So this particular cell will have Sachin here, correct? So this is the task of fill down and fill up that we have to do using dynamic array formulas. So let's see how we can do this. So now first of all we will use a simple logic. So what we will do is we will see whether these particular cells are empty or not. So we will have true for those cells which are not empty. So again we have these trues and false here, and now what we will do is we will convert these into binary numbers, that is 1 and 0. So again we have these 1 and 0 now. So now what we will do is we will do a running count. So for that we will use scan function. So again scan, and let's take our initial value as 1. You can take 0 as well, so that's not the issue, but let's take 1, and this will be our array, right? This array of 1 and 0, and as our function we will write lambda, and let's say our previous value is x and current value is y, and we want to do x plus y. Let's close the bracket, press enter, and we have successfully done running count. So we have essentially created groups here. So this is group number 1, again this is group 2, this is group 3, and this is group 4, right? This is group 3, this is group 4. Now we can use this particular result as our helper, and so with that let's proceed. So now we will use XLOOKUP and map function. So let's see how we are going to use, but let's start wrapping our function inside let function. So let's say our range variable is the range on which we want to perform fill down or fill up, and let's say we define helper as this range, correct? And now we will perform our calculations. So we will use map function, right? And as our array 1 we will pass, let's say, this range variable, and as our array 2 we will pass this h variable, right? And now we will use lambda function. So let's say we define each variable in our array 1 as a and each variable in array 2 as b, right? And now we will use a logic, that is if a equals to nothing, that is if a is empty, then now since we are doing fill down first, so what we want is we want to look up, right? So we will use XLOOKUP, and we want to look up for b, right? And our lookup array will be again that h variable, h array, and as a return array we want to return this range, correct? So let's close it, and if the value is false we simply want a back, right? Let's close the brackets and let's see the result. So we have our results here, right? So again as we wanted, so since this cell was empty, so we have populated Sachin down, and again Virat, and then here we have Dhoni, right? So let's say here we write something. So let's say here we write Pant, press enter. So here now we have Pant, Dhoni, right? Let's press Ctrl Z. Now for filled up we will use the same formula but with a minute change, right? So let's copy this and let's come here and equals to, let's paste the formula, and instead of looking up for only b, we will look up for b plus 1, right? And now let's press enter. So here we again have our results, and these look correct. So again this cell was empty, so it looked down and it picked up Sachin. So here we have Sachin. Again here we have Virat, Dhoni, and again for the last cell, as it was empty, so we are getting any error here. So if we, let's say, write here Pant, right? So again this is populated with Pant here, correct? So let's press Ctrl Z. So let's also do one thing. So here if the last cell of the range is empty, so again here we are going to get an error. So we can treat this here only. So we will use, so we will write this if condition inside if na formula. So if na, right? And so if it is na error, we want to see nothing, right? And we have corrected it. So now just to show you one more simpler way of doing fill down, so how we can do this, we can do this simply using scan function. So we will use scan, right? And as our initial value, let's pass this empty string, comma, as our array we will pass this array, comma, lambda, let's use x comma y, and we will use a if condition. So if our y equals to, let's say, this empty string, then what we want x, else we want y back, right? Let's close the brackets, press enter, and we have our results again, right? And these are absolutely correct. This is a much simpler approach of doing actually the fill down. And how we can do in a similar fashion fill up, so what we can do is we can reverse this particular array, right? So what we can do, equals to, let's generate a sequence, right? And let's say it has these many rows, and also let's pass few more parameters. So let's say its start value is also the number of rows that we have in this particular array, and as our step we will pass -1, close the bracket, press enter. So we have to reverse this array actually. Now we will use index function. So again index, and let's pass this array again, comma, and let's close this bracket. So that's why I generally prefer to use let function. So if we wrap this whole function inside let function, this particular formula will look much neater and smaller. So let's do this actually. So let's say range be this particular and let's write in place of this whole name, let's write simply range, right? And here also let's write range, and here also let's write range, right? And let's close the brackets, press enter. So here we have reversed our arrays, and now what we will do is we will again use scan function. So let's copy it from here. So let's copy this, right? Let's copy it, and let's declare this particular range as, let's say, A, and here let's say this is B, and let's write it here. And in place of this table 2 players, we will write again here A, right? And as our final result, we want to see B. So we have reversed the array, we have applied fill down. Now we want to again now we have to again reverse it, right? So for that, again what we will do is, let's copy this part, right? Let's copy this part, and in place of B we will paste this particular formula, and now in place of this range we will write B here, correct? Again in place of this range we will write B, and again we will write B here. Now let's press enter. So we have again did the same task of fill up, but with different approach. So I am adding one more approach, that is third approach of doing fill down or fill up using formulas. So we will use match function. So match, and our lookup value will be this range, comma, our lookup array will be again this range, comma, and our match type will be 0. Close the bracket, press enter, and we have this as our resultant array. Now we have to filter out for these NA errors. So what we can do is equals to filter, and our array will be again this array, comma, as our include parameter we will write not is NA, right, and as our value we will again pass this array. Close the brackets, press enter, and we have filtered out all the errors that we had. Now let's say we wrap this whole thing that we did here inside one single formula. So what we will do, we will copy this particular formula, filter formula, and let's come here and let's wrap this whole thing inside let function. So let, and let's define this match operation that we did by a variable, and again comma, and let's say we defined that filter part that we did by b variable, and let's paste our formula, and in place of this i3 hash reference we will use a here, again in place of this we will use a here, and as a result we want b back from let function. So press enter, and we have again the same results, correct. So we can delete this one, and also make some reference for this range as well. So we will use, let's say, range variable for that, and let's say our range variable is this range, and we can replace this by rng, and again this one by rng, right. Press enter, and we have again the same results. Now as our next step, what we will do, we will use xlookup function, but before that we have to generate a sequence as well. So equals to sequence, and as our rows we will pass again rows function and the number of rows that we have in our range, correct. Close the brackets, press enter, and we have this sequence. Now we will apply the xlookup function. So equals to xlookup, and our lookup value will be this sequence, comma, our lookup array will be this array, and again our return array will be this array, comma, our match mode will be -1 in case of fill down, right. So let's select this, and let's close the bracket, press enter. So we have this as a result, and now we can simply apply index functions. So index, and this will be our array, comma, our row number will be this xlookup function. So close the brackets, press enter, and we have this as a result, and we can wrap this whole thing inside if error function. So if error, we want to see an empty string, enter, and we have successfully done fill down. Now let's do one thing, let's wrap this whole thing inside this particular let function. So let's take first this sequence function. So let's copy this, and let's go here, and let's say we define another variable as, let's say, c, comma, and let's paste it here, and in place of this reference again we will use rng variable, right, and as a result we, let's say, want to see c back. Now what we will do, we will again now copy this formula, the last part, and we will go here, and in place of this c we will paste that formula, and in place of this particular reference we will use rng variable, right. In place of this j3 hash we will use our c variable. In place of this i3 reference we will use b variable. So b, and again b variable here, correct. So now let's press enter. So we have again this as a result, correct. So we can remove this, and now what we will do is again we will simply copy this complete formula. Let's go here and let's paste it here, and in place of this -1 we just have to change it to 1, right. So we are essentially doing exact match or next larger item, correct. If we press enter, so we have successfully done fill up part, right. So here we just change one parameter, that is we have to look up for next larger, next smaller, and we have done with the same logic fill down and fill up. So we have successfully done fill down and fill up using formulas with 3 different approaches. There can be many more approaches, but we restricted to these 3 approaches, right? So do let me know in the comment section if you have any more approaches of doing this task. Thank you so much for watching this till end, and please do hit the like button if you really enjoyed it, and do hit the subscribe button if you want more such videos like this one in future. So thanks a lot, and hope to see you in more such upcoming videos like this in future. Thank you.